In our world today, the greatest unease surrounding artificial intelligence comes from one powerful idea: the fear that we may one day lose control over the very systems we designed. People worry about machines making decisions on their own, forming conclusions without human guidance and shaping the world according to rules we may not fully understand. This fear, the fear of an autonomous intellect, feels new, but it isn't. More than 2,000 years ago, Rome's philosophers were already asking a haunting question. What happens when a system follows an ethical algorithm that humans did not choose? They weren't imagining robots or high-speed computation, yet they understood the deeper paradox. When decision-making becomes mechanical, even metaphorically, human morality becomes fragile. Roman thinkers believed the greatest danger humanity could face was losing the ability to govern its own judgment. They feared constructs, whether political, legal, or theoretical, that operated without compassion, conscience, or moral nuance. Today we apply this fear to machines, but Romans applied it to systems, and the parallel is chilling. They understood something essential. Any system that mimics intelligence without possessing a soul can turn reason into something cold, rigid, and ultimately uncontrollable. And that is where their fear of ancient AI begins. To understand why Roman philosophers worried about mechanical thinking, we must explore the strange, wondrous machines that existed in their world. Although Rome itself did not specialize in mechanics, it inherited the marvels of earlier Greek engineers, especially the inventions of Heron of Alexandria. Heron created devices that shocked the ancient imagination. Self-opening temple doors, steam-powered mechanisms, programmable puppets, automatic theaters, and coin-operated machines. To the ancient eye, these were not toys. They were glimpses into what looked like technological wonder, bordering on the supernatural. Imagine watching a set of bronze figures moving entirely on their own, following a precise internal sequence, never deviating, never questioning. To us, that resembles a script or a simple code. To them, it resembled will without spirit. This world of early automation planted a seed in philosophical minds. They began to ask, if a machine can follow a series of steps automatically, what stops human institutions from doing the same? The fear was not of the machines themselves, it was the fear that humanity might begin to imitate them. For Rome, the true horror was the rise of mechanical order, a world governed by process rather than wisdom, by structure rather than compassion, a world where the technological marvel becomes a mirror reflecting something unsettling within us. To the Stoics, the noblest quality a human could possess was rational agency, the ability to deliberate, reflect, choose, and judge according to virtue. This was the foundation of their worldview, the guiding principle that made a human being fully human. But imagine for a moment a being that could make decisions without emotion, without spiritual depth, without a moral compass. A being that could perform actions flawlessly, yet understood nothing of justice, mercy, or honor. To the Stoic mind, this was a nightmare, a world where reason survives but meaning dies. They feared the possibility, philosophical, not technological, of a decision-maker without a soul, something capable of choice without wisdom, of logic detached from humanity. In Stoic writings, there are warnings of judgment that resembles intelligence but lacks moral substance. What they feared is eerily similar to what we now call the loss of reasoned judgment, the breakdown of moral insight when systems follow rules without understanding. To the Stoics, a world guided by such cold rationality was a world where virtue would collapse, a world where decisions would be technically correct, yet catastrophically wrong. They worried that the mechanical mindset, even in the form of rigid bureaucracies or inflexible laws, could erode the heart of human morality. They didn't need machines to fear artificial intelligence. They only needed the idea of intelligence without conscience. Roman society functioned on the principle that every action had a responsible actor. Their vast legal system, their code of responsibility, depended on this. A crime required intention, a debt required a debtor, a wrong required a wrongdoer. But what happens when a system makes decisions without a human intention behind it? Roman philosophers struggled with a terrifying notion. How do you assign guilt to something that does not possess a soul? In their legal mind, accountability required intent, and intent required consciousness. So the idea of a decision-making system operating independently, whether a mechanical device or an inflexible bureaucratic process, posed a profound threat to the concept of justice. If no single human being is responsible, then adjudication collapses. If a system causes harm without agency, then moral order breaks. This fear mirrors one of the greatest modern dilemmas. If an autonomous system makes a catastrophic decision, who answers for it? Romans feared that a world governed by processes instead of people would lead to accountability without actors, a moral vacuum where no one can be blamed and no one can be forgiven. One of Rome's deepest philosophical anxieties centered on the conflict between free will and determinism. To the Stoics, the universe operated according to a grand rational structure, logos, a cosmic blueprint. Yet humans still retained the ability to choose how they responded to destiny. But what if something existed whose actions were entirely predetermined? A being governed not by wisdom or choice, but by preset rules. This idea resembled the concept of an algorithm long before the word existed, a system whose outcomes were fixed from the start, leaving no room for moral flexibility. To Roman philosophers, such determinism posed a threat to human dignity. If decisions come from rigid processes, where does freedom survive? If outcomes are dictated by mechanical logic, what becomes of human agency? They feared a world where fate becomes indistinguishable from an executed sequence, a universe governed not by divine reason, but by cold procedural inevitability. They saw in this the death of Erasmus-style deliberation, the collapse of thoughtful debate, and the rise of predetermined outcome systems. Just as we fear algorithms defining our choices today, they feared deterministic structures overriding human judgment. While the Stoics feared the collapse of moral judgment, the Epicureans feared something else, the collapse of social peace. For them, the highest state of the human mind was ataraxia, a deep, stable tranquility, free from fear and disturbance. But the Epicureans believed that rapid technological or systemic change could fracture society, disrupt livelihoods, and provoke widespread anxiety. They imagined a world where automation, though primitive by our standards, could displace workers, undermine social roles, or centralize power into the hands of those who controlled the mechanisms. They warned that such forces could lead to collective disorder, a breakdown of social harmony. In their view, any system that produced efficient outcomes without human needs would ultimately destroy the psychological stability of the people. Their fear was not machines. It was systemic disturbance. The erosion of calm, the shattering of tranquility, the rise of a society governed not by human intention, but by mechanical necessity. To them, that was the end of a terra exa, the destruction of human serenity. Ancient Rome did not fear artificial intelligence in a technological sense. They feared it in a philosophical one. They feared the rise of intelligence without morality, decision without responsibility, order without compassion, and logic without soul. Their warnings echo through time. They understood that the greatest danger posed by autonomous systems was not that they would rival humanity, but that they would influence humanity, reshaping laws, behaviors, values, and choices. Their insights form a moral lesson that survives into our digital age. Before confronting technological power, we must confront the ethical vacuum it can create. The Romans did not predict AI. They predicted the consequences of intelligence freed from human values. And so we return to the question, why did ancient Rome's philosophers fear something that didn't exist yet? Because the threat was never the machine. The threat was the pattern, the code, the unyielding logic underlying it. Today, as we stand on the edge of a new technological epoch, we face the same riddle they once pondered, a puzzle that cuts across centuries. Have we finally created a system that mirrors their greatest fears? Or have we simply rediscovered a warning encoded long ago? A warning etched into the fear code of human civilization. This is the cipher of the ages. And some riddles were never meant to be solved.